Welcome to the Nexus Point, a podcast for next-gen accounting firms. Here's your host, Jeff Bruskin.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nexus Point. I'm your host, Jeff Bruskin. Topics that we'll cover are all things public accounting, wealth management, and intersectionality, technology, emerging trends. And I have here with me today our guest, David Snyder, CEO of Harness Wealth. David, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So maybe you could start off and just tell our audience a little bit about you and what you do.
That'd be great. Yeah. So Harness is a platform built for boutique tax firms to deliver an exceptional experience to their clients. We have a practice management component to what we're offering, but it's connected to a broad marketplace that we have that generates high quality client leads and business growth. It's also tied to a concierge team that allows us to partner with large-scale financial service companies to be the gateway for their clients' tax needs, and also to be essentially an outsourced arm of the operations of our tax firm partners. So a much more white glove and integrated approach to partnering than I think what a lot of technology players tend to look like in the space. And in terms of my background, I've spent the last 12 years helping to build companies that support advisors collaborating more effectively with their clients. I spent half a decade helping to build Compass, the tech-enabled real estate brokerage, which is now the largest residential real estate firm in the US, as the COO, CFO. And that was sort of the first experience where I saw the value in creating technology that fostered these more seamless, insightful experiences in a space where people, meaning the end client, still really cares about the advisor that they work with. And had the opportunity to look at a few spaces like that when I was an exec in residence at Bain Capital Ventures, and just got fascinated by the opportunity I saw to help make the tax practice, tax process, et cetera, as seamless and insightful as I think it can and should be for lots of clients that are looking for better and better solutions.
So one of the things that we talk a lot about on this podcast, and I talk a lot about with prospective and actual clients, is the future forward-looking thought process around the platformization of the professional services model. Maybe talk a little bit about how you see CPA firms, wealth management firms, estate planning, integrating, and maybe in what situations you don't expect it to integrate, or do you think it's going to be kind of a tidal wave that takes over the professional services world?
Yeah, I think there are two intersecting trends that in some regards are at odds, and in some regards I think can lead to multiple successful opportunities for advisors. I think on the one hand, technology and operating leverage has never been more important in the practice. The really large firms are probably a decade plus ahead in terms of offshoring, some automation. How can you deliver large scale audits, tax processes, et cetera, in a way that, are accurate, insightful, profitable, et cetera. And so I think it's really hard to be a small practitioner, whether that's one person or it's 50 people or it's, even 500, that are not thinking about ways to make work scale in focusing on where humans can deliver the value additive components and where automation technology can support efficiencies elsewhere to create that. That would suggest, hey, there's going to be lots of consolidation as, has been happening and as has happened in other service industries. At the same time, I think broadly, even outside of professional services, there is a sense of entrepreneurialism, flexibility, people wanting to own their own destiny and not necessarily being beholden to mega firms, mega companies sort of dictating stuff. And so I think there's a successful pathway, and the really good regional and big firms will continue to grow. Obviously, a lot of private equity capital sort of banking that is a strategy that will play out to, higher earnings and exit strategies. But I also think there's a massive opportunity where you've got 99% of CPA firms generating less than 5 million of revenue for businesses like Harness to really provide an alternative path from acquisition for these practices to be able to operate with that same benefit of automation and efficiency and that same access to the highest value new clients that are looking for better advice, but better advice that's delivered in a contemporary way.
Yeah, fascinating. Really, really cool. So I've seen your product, the harness product, and I think it stood out to me immediately as clearly designed for the niches that we're talking about, namely CPA firms and also the wealth management space. I have actually a tremendous amount of nexus with RIAs that are interested in building out CPA firm vehicles, whether through M&A activity, through hiring, through the elusive joint venture, which is a lot easier mapped on paper than it is actually utilized effectively. But I was perhaps the most astounded by the crossover application that, say, a wealth management firm doesn't have any experience running a CPA firm or kind of managing the workflows and the processes that are inherent to a CPA firm. Obviously, financial advisors have tremendous quarterbacking competency when it comes to kind of managing the life and the macros of the high net worth individual, the closely held business. But maybe talk a little bit about kind of your design concept, because I was particularly fascinated with that.
Yeah, would love to. And I think maybe starting with the industry first, I think that trend is moving in both directions. I've had conversations with Larry Miles, who runs Choreo, which is an RIA business predicated upon a thesis of RIAs connected to tax firms tend not to be the most effective as a financial operation. They make much more sense as part of a platform of financial advisors, and vice versa. I had lunch this week, actually, with a partner at a really good regional CPA firm who had worked in the tax practice of a large financial advisor and said the margin expectations were like off the charts in an unrealistic way from what the FA thought they could do with the CPA. And so I think there definitely will be success stories of holistic wealth managers that find a way to do this well. But I would say I meet a lot more financial advisory firms that liked the idea of it, and in practice it has been far more complicated than expected. Or like,
Well said.
when we talk the opportunity that we offer financial advisory firms of, hey, you can have a great resource for your clients that has all the benefits of you being, permissioned inside their portal and being aware of what's happening without you actually having to run a totally different professional service business and vertical that has a different tech stack, different cadence, et cetera. We started actually with a pure play marketplace model, which was out of an observation that I had that next generation wealth creators, professional services, tech and private equity kind of back business builders, et cetera, we're going to find it increasingly challenging to identify the best advisors across tax, financial advisory, trust and estate, other things over time, and have that all work together. So we start with a marketplace that would allow people to figure out what, based on their situation, do they actually want from a service standpoint, and then who are the best advisors or some of the best advisors in the country to meet those needs, and how can that experience be more efficient to collaborate with them. And in finding a shortage of tax firms that checked all the boxes we were looking for, that's what led us to really create this harness tax platform to be a comprehensive powering relationship for firms that aspire to run more efficiently, provide the resources to their clients of a much bigger firm, but maintain autonomy in pricing, who they work with, decisions, et cetera, that I think is highly desirable for a lot of the people that are running small, medium-sized practices, or that are at really big firms and think that taking the entrepreneurial leap probably is what they'd like to do if there's a way to do it that feels a little de-risked.
I love it. There's a lot to unpack there. I think, so there's the kind of the people and the technology aspect of harness, because I know you guys have, I actually don't know much about it, but I know you have a community model. So it'd be great to touch on that and kind of your thesis around technology and community building when it comes to interconnected services and monetization and non-exclusivity and white glove extension services and all of those things that are super high important to what I call the ecosystem, right? Whether it's the wealth management firm that's utilizing, for example, CPA services, or if it's the CPA firm that's, for example, utilizing wealth management services. So that piece would be really interesting. And then also I would love to touch, David, upon kind of what you've seen from the CPA firms that maybe don't have a sophisticated wealth management capability suite yet, and how Harness is also facilitating that, because it's the opposite, right? It's the reciprocal. And I think there are probably some common challenges and some unique ones.
Yep, for sure. So I would say a lot of what we've done, came out of the experience I had building Compass in the real estate space, which is how do we provide the things that a much bigger, e.g. a large regional player might to a tax partner, director, et cetera, hopefully do those things better and do those things with a service delivery model that gives massive autonomy and control, to the individual. So having technology that creates the operating leverage is key. Having technology that allows your end consumer client to say, gosh, that whole process took half as much time and gave me way more visibility into it, is going to create stronger relationships, more pricing power for the advisor, et cetera, over time. Having a brand and a set of resources that in talking to prospects, you can speak to, hey, it's not just me, Jeff, like I'm great, but you're getting me and only me. It's me, Jeff, running a practice with all the resources of the Harness platform that allow me to draw upon a council of tax attorneys for specialized issues, to if something really esoteric pops up, you need a, more complex depreciation analysis for a real estate property that you've invested in. That may not be my expertise, but there's another Harness advisor that I can tap into for that. And we can deliver something that feels integrated to you in the same way it would if you're working with a regional firm, but hey, it's going to cost you a quarter as much because I have that autonomy, et cetera. And having that, again, Halo brand that also helps provide, leads and new clients to the advisor. So that's kind of the goal we think about.
Are these white labeled services, or how does that work?
They're not. It's co-branded. So like in the same, Jeff CPA would be the brand on the engagement letter, but in the portal, it's a Harness URL. It's just branded Jeff everywhere. That we think is sort of the right balance, again, of being able to give firms the access and the optics of being part of a much bigger platform and resources to draw upon, but it still is your show, your brand, your client relationship, et cetera. To the second part of your question, I think on the wealth side of things, our view is that pure play tends to be the most effective. And so we've got this marketplace of financial advisors, I think, where a lot of traditional CPAs have felt uncomfortable when they were at a firm that had its own wealth advisory practice. Does this feel like I'm kind of just cross-selling for the benefit of the firm? Is this really value additive? Our model is we have dozens of different best of breed, highly diligenced firms that we gather feedback from clients that we send that work with them. They're, rediligenced on an annual basis, et cetera. And so that leads to an advisor who might have a client sort of saying, hey, been working with Jane at Morgan Stanley or John at wherever, not sure I'm getting the best experience. Like, is there someone you recommend? That can be curated of specific advisors at multiple firms who have the right expertise for an entrepreneur, with these types of alternative assets that has this interest and maybe this, set of trust or unique issues, et cetera, to tackle those pieces that we think drive great outcomes. Then there can be integration in the way the data flows and stuff like that to create the best experiences and overall monetization.
So the product that I saw, that your VP showed me, was exceptional. I'm blanking on his name. He was great.
Nick, I think, is who you chatted with. Yeah.
It was great. The product was specifically a project management system, I think that sits inside of wealth management firms for kind of CPA firm functionality. Is that correct? And then is there a separate product that's more aligned to sitting inside of CPA firms for wealth management functionality, or is it CPA firms specifically for CPA functionalities? And maybe talk a little bit about how your product is different from, I know of Carbon and Canopy. I know of ERPs that accomplish like PM and kind of client experience oriented, workflow processing. And so just would love to hear a little bit about some of that tailored aspect.
Yeah. So our core practice management system is built for CPAs, tax advisory firms, et cetera. So I think that's probably what you would have seen. There is what we think is probably the best curated advisor discovery marketplace functionality that is both how consumers find different tax firms that are on the platform, potentially to work with them, but also how clients of existing advisors can also tap into that network and have that curated wealth experience. Because we work with a lot of big financial service companies to be a tax referral partner for their clients, two of the top 10 in the US and a bunch of others, we built in a way that you can permission your financial advisor in your tax portal or other advisors, business managers, et cetera. So it creates a much more collaborative ecosystem where data can flow effectively and where the extraction of data ends up being useful for anyone that's part of that service delivery model for the individual. I think to your question on what differentiates, I think most, if not all, of the practice management solutions that are out in the market today, it's a piece of software. Like you're paying for a number of seats, onboarding, service issues, et cetera. It's kind of like if you're using Microsoft or Google, like, there are ways to get help, but it's very different. The firms that we partner with, like we really partner with them in having the feel of like, you've got IT resources, you've got this client success concierge team, they're helping with office admin components. And that allows us to be much more comprehensive in the types of things that we can offer for practices. Some of those things that maybe one-off once a year, other things that are, for every client adding some value around, et cetera. So it really is a much more expansive area of surface that we think creates a lot more opportunities to drive the operating efficiency for both firms. Might be a solo practice as well as that, 30, 50 person firm, in addition to the levers to actually help grow and drive more profitability as well.
So I think what's so fascinating to me, David, is that a lot of, I think the Google, Microsoft, sort of piece of software point is really well received. It seems like with the community interconnectivity piece, the subject matter expert interconnectivity, it seems like you're elevating the smaller firm to have the bigger firm capability. So almost like, what's coming to mind is like a modern BDO alliance. There's a lot of kind of conversation about that. What does the BDO Alliance 2.0 look like in this environment where entrepreneurship is more abundant and favorable, and M&A consolidation is crazy, and tech enablement is crazy. And I like that because it seems like your product is a combination of empowerment, of community, and then of software workflows and the data. And even the client experience that's associated with that. Do I have that right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think there are a lot of great businesses that are out there that have built, pure play technology tools for advisors. When it comes though to that really like transformational partnership and change and being able to scale effectively and think about a broader workflow, we're pretty uniquely positioned in what tech-enabled services and more of a partnership community model can unlock for firms and unlock it dramatically higher ROI or value than being an alliance member and trying a new technology every year and having some duplication and, hiring contractor consultants to implement and integrate and do all the pieces that are entailed in having something in 2025 that works as well as it can.
Where do you see the product going? Where do you see the industry going? And how do those two things intersect?
So I have spoken about this. My view is that there is sort of tax tech 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. The 1.0 is like actually having a digital place for your clients to send files and e-file and stuff that I think pretty much every tax practice, has hopefully found itself to, with maybe a few exceptions. 2.0 is really around workflow automation, creating the consistency for the client experience and for the way that your practice, your team, et cetera, operates. I think that most practices in the 0 to 5 million range tend to be at like 1.5, where there's a lot of work that can be done to drive that efficiency that most of the firms I talk to are eager to get to, but it's just a question of the grind and the seasonality and how much change you want to have at one given time and who's going to deal with it, et cetera. And then the 3.0 is obviously the one that people get most excited about. And often 1.5 firms want to jump to 3.0, which is, how can AI do all the work for me, customize communications with clients, really kind of turbocharge the insightfulness advisory capabilities that we have to deliver to clients. We help practices be at the forefront of 2.0, and then now also integrate the elements of 3.0 that we think are the most valuable around the way data gets organized, extracted, organized, et cetera. There's a huge amount of stuff that's in our roadmap that we're excited to do around how do you decrease the number of hours that people have to do things that are not particularly high value add? And then how do you also help highlight insights for clients over time they're going to make them more excited about what they're getting from their advisory relationship.
Do you see that the firms that use Harness effectively are dealing predominantly with fewer, more lucrative and advisory-driven relationships as opposed to kind of the churn and burn 1040 and bookkeeping sort of environments?
Yeah, again, we don't dictate how the firms want to evolve. I think certainly in showing the types of clients that are looking for advisors like them and their willingness to pay, in helping to automate and make the administrative side far more efficient, it certainly allows advisors to shift that way pretty quickly, adding hundreds of thousands of dollars of new business, but structured in the right way with clients that advisors are excited to work with because they generally have more complexity, more advisory needs, whether that's around business sales, liquidity, investment structures, complex investments, you name it. Those are the ones that advisors tend to like working with because it's more interesting, more opportunity, more value add contribution. That I think is what most advisors are looking for. You don't meet a lot of advisors that say, hey, I really want to, bring my average price down slightly and add 50% more clients. It's obviously the opposite. And so helping them to drive in that direction is really valuable.
Who are the best prospective clients for you? Who are the firms that you talk to them and it's just like a match made in heaven?
I think it tends to be firms that are at an inflection point where they're really excited about making meaningful change to drive meaningful results. I think, the vast majority of firms have an appetite for trying new technology and getting some improvement, but to really benefit from the scope of what we have, it's often been firms where the next generation is taking over. They are, acquiring a small practice to supplement and grow, and then want to figure out how do we collectively bring the best of two different practices together to drive things. Maybe it's just someone who's lost a couple team members, wants to, rebuild effectively with the resources that they don't have to maybe add as many people as they lost, but can still support a bigger and bigger business. So it tends to be, a breakaway, someone who's, at a big firm, but really excited to create their own practice. I think those inflection points are when we can unlock the most value. And whenever you can unlock the most value, you tend to get the most excitement from your prospective client or partner.
It makes perfect sense. David, this has been great. A tremendous value and a lot of market understanding. I think just look forward to following your progress. And I actually expect that some of the places that I'll be able to deploy your product into most effectively will be in the wealth management space, because I really see that curated experience being, that's a major inflection point that I'm seeing commonly with RIAs, is that they're going to solve this problem. It's a matter of how. And the CPA firms will definitely keep you top of mind for that as well. So thanks for joining today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Nexus Point, a podcast for next-gen accounting firms. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with your friends. See you on the next one.